Our final speaker, Jose Ordonez, is from Woodland, California, and received his undergraduate degree from UC Davis in economics and Spanish. He worked for a nonprofit organization prior to attending law school. Jose is interested in pursuing a career in legal defense, and after graduation in the spring plans to return to California to practice law. Jose is a student ambassador and president of the Hispanic American Law Students Association. Jose, would you say a few words for us?
Put this here because it comes from the heart. As Dean Mazza said, I am president of HALSA. My name is Jose, and I'm from Northern California, right near Sacramento. And I just want to say first, as a recipient of past scholarships and other awards, I'd like to let you know that events like this really encourage us to continue working hard despite the long 3-year law school journey. Now, to understand what this past summer's public interest work meant to me, I need to tell you more about my community. Like I said, I grew up in Woodland around the tracks, and that rarely means the nice area. Growing up, I was faced with limited resources, and that's a nice way of saying poverty, drug abuse, domestic violence, gang activity, the negative stuff. As a young teenager, I saw that these problems were part of a cycle. Sometimes an entire family would be plagued with drug use, which would change the whole environment for the younger kids, thus leaving little hope for them. Though I lived in this community throughout my childhood and my teenage years, many people, like my teachers, my counselors, and the principals of the schools that I went to, reached out to me to help guide me towards a higher education. I'd say their efforts were successful because I'm now a law student. Around March earlier this year, after securing a position as a legal intern for the Yolo County Public Defender's Office, that's my home county, I sat down to write out an application essay for the public interest stipend. I was asked a question like, why do I believe this is important to serve? Why do I believe it's important to serve this population? Now, at that moment, everything really clicked because I was able to connect what I'd been through and what I'm about to return to, but on a different side. I realized that it was now my turn to give back. I had gained a legal education sufficient to assist the very same population, the very same troubled community which I rose from. And one of my duties was to remember how it felt to be on that other side. Now I'd completed a transformation. I was no longer a youth battling out the negative avenues and the positive attitudes and trying to figure out what's right. I was a student professional. From now on, I'll just say professional. I don't believe that anything could have been more rewarding than my experience this past summer, returning to my hometown. Under my supervising attorney, I worked on nearly all aspects of the legal process. I interviewed clients, researched issues, drafted motions. They trusted me. And I networked with the legal community. I enjoyed being in the courtroom and learning how to work with the prosecutors and the judges and mostly the clients. On one particular case, I interviewed this client who, it was a domestic violence case, and it was a really old case, but nevertheless, he was being prosecuted for it. He was over 10 years old. It involved a lot of drug use, where his family situation, basically him and his wife were heavy drug users. His daughter was also a user, and I thought this guy's in a mess. But I thought back to where I came from, and I knew that it was my duty to provide him with adequate legal education, of course, with supervising attorneys as well. So I represented this client later in the process during hearings, and somehow I got the case dismissed. So one of my first victories. The client shook my hand vigorously, and while he shook my hand, his wife came up. They're still together. His wife came up and grabbed my arm and held on. And I realized it was moments like these that really make the work that you do rewarding. I really felt special, and I felt like I changed their lives. I kept them together as a family. In conclusion, I never knew I'd return to my community with something of great value. Oh, I'm sorry. I knew I'd return to my community with something of great value, but I never knew I'd be an attorney. This capacity allows me to create change in an underserved community. In addition to providing the community with competent representation, I hope to serve as a positive role model for the youth and family members who have been in situations like mine. I'd like to thank the people who provided the support for me, as well as others, to engage in a public service commitment over this past summer. So please join me in appreciation.
Thank you.